Remove that decaying junk immediately. 3 days. I'd owned this boathouse for exactly 3 days, and now 5 gleaming Mercedes encircled it like scavengers. The Ho president's expression twisted with disgust as she brandished a stack of legal papers toward my lawfully purchased property. 24 hours, so that's all she granted me to somehow relocate an entire boathouse that had been moored here since 1952. The absurdity made my head reel. How does one even move a boathouse? And why would I need to move something I'd just bought? She sneered. This is our lake. She was mistaken completely. The morning light cast golden ribbons across Serenity Lake as I dipped my brush into a weathered can of paint. 3 days. That's all I'd had this vintage 1952 boathouse. Yet it already felt like home. The teak planks creaked softly beneath my feet, a comforting sound that reminded me why I'd walked away from everything else. The failed marriage, the creative drought, the chaos of city life. My editor had called me insane for buying an old lakeside property, sight unseen, at an estate sale. But standing there, hands stained with paint and the wind threading through my hair, I'd never felt more certain of myself. Then came the convoy. 5 luxury cars and Mercedes bumpers gleaming, and a gaudy yellow Lamborghini grinding to a halt on the narrow dirt path. Doors slammed with choreographed aggression. The lead Mercedes bore a vanity plate that read "Ho Boss." I should have known then what awaited me. Laura Sullivan stepped out first, her platinum hair so rigid it defied the breeze. She wore a corduroy blazer that likely cost more than the entire boathouse, and her face bore the expression of someone who'd just stepped in something vile. Behind her, a younger woman in a severe black suit gripped a leather briefcase like a blade. The resemblance was unmistakably same sharp cheekbones, same icy blue eyes. Mother and daughter, a dynasty of suburban dominance. "Stop what you're doing." Laura's voice sliced through the still morning air like a dull saw. "You've got 30 seconds to explain yourself." I set my paintbrush down, wiping my palms calmly on my jeans. Years of dealing with impossible editors had taught me to remain composed in this face of unreasonable fury. "Can I help you?" I asked. "Help?" Laura's lip curled. She whipped out her phone, already filming, the case glinting gold, real gold, judging by the weight. "Everyone, meet the newest trespasser in Serenity Hills," she announced. "Look at this monstrosity. Can you believe someone thinks they can just dump this garbage in our lake?" The younger woman stepped forward, heels sinking slightly into the damp ground. "I'm Jessica Sullivan, legal counsel for the Serenity Hills Homeowners Association," she said. "You're in violation of 17 Ho bylaws, sections 12 through 29 of the Architectural Code, and multiple clauses of the Lakefront Covenant." 3 men flanked them like uniformed guards, each wearing identical navy polos stamped with Ho emblems. They nodded in sync with every word Laura uttered. One filmed on a tablet while another snapped photos with a professional camera. "I purchased this boathouse legally," I replied, keeping my tone level despite the absurd theater unfolding around me. "I have every permit from the city." "Permits?" Laura barked, a laugh so harsh that a flock of birds burst from the trees. "City permits mean nothing here. Allow me to enlighten you. We are the hope. We are the law in this community." She thrust the paper at me with such force that I had to step back to catch it before it struck my chest. The letterhead was embossed, the paper thick as cardboard. "By this time tomorrow," she declared, "this eyesore is gone. If you don't comply, we'll remove it ourselves." "Crews and machinery are already scheduled." My hands trembled, not from fear, but from outrage. "This is harassment," I said. "You can't just..." Laura cut me off, her shrill tone sharp enough to splinter glass. "Richard, tell our new neighbor what we can't do." The man with the rigid posture stepped forward. "Last year we demolished a shed that broke height limits. The year before, a dock that wasn't pre-approved. The Johnsons tried to contest it. They don't live here anymore." "This," Laura declared, turning toward the growing audience of lakefront spectators, "is how we protect property values. This floating junk pile drags everyone's home worth down 20% to 20%. That's millions in lost equity." Phones appeared in every direction, lenses trained on me. A woman in yoga gear shook her head in disdain. A man walking his poodle paused to watch. Jessica opened her briefcase with theatrical precision, pulling out document after document. "Fines begin immediately," she said. $500 per day, compounding daily. After 72 hours, we can remove the structure and charge you for disposal. The current estimate for emergency removal stands at $18,000. And don't even consider fighting it," Laura added with a gleaming, unnatural smile. "Jessica here has won 47 homeowner cases of 47-0. The Wilsons, the Clarks, the Patolsa, they all thought they could resist." "Where are they now?" the crowd murmured. "Phone still recording." "This boathouse has been here since 1952, I said evenly. "Longer than any of your houses. It's practically a historical landmark." "Exactly why it needs to go," Laura snapped, her voice climbing an octave. "Just look at it, peeling paint, rotting beams, crawling with termites and mold. It's a health hazard." "I'm renovating it," I replied, holding up the brush. "That's what the paint is for." With that, she gestured dismissively toward my work. "Cheap paint on decaying wood. This is a luxury community, not a junkyard. We have standards, review boards, approval procedures, all of which you ignored." Jessica produced a thick folder, her movements precise. "We've already logged 37 violations," she said smoothly. "Each carries a $1,000 penalty, not including the daily fines. Incorrect window dimensions, improper roof pitch, non-compliant paint color, dock position outside setback limits." "Shall I continue?" Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a weathered wooden box resting near the wall. The carving on its side read, "Wilson Estate, 1952 to 2024. A faded photograph had slipped out, showing the lake as it once was. No homes, no manicured lawns, just water, trees, and a solitary boathouse. Laura followed my gaze. "Clean up that junk, too," she said sharply. "Probably crawling with rats." She tapped at her phone, manicured nails clicking against the glass. "Peterson, Cutwater access to Section D7. Call it maintenance. Emergency pipe repair." Then she smiled at me, cold and precise. "Oops, how unfortunate. 24 hours without running water. Hope that doesn't make things a broken bar inconvenient." Her live stream was still rolling, the screen filling with comments. "Get him out. Trash. Call the cops. Protect our values." One brief comment stood out, another victim, but it vanished seconds later. "Actually," I said, bending to pick up the old photograph, "this proves the boathouse predates your entry." "Proves what?" Laura cut in. "That you're squatting on our lake." Her face flushed crimson against her cornrow blazer. "Let me be perfectly clear, since you seem slow to understand," she said, stepping closer. "You have 24 hours, not a minute more. Move this wreck, or I'll personally make sure you regret ever hearing the name Serenity Hills. I have contacts at the county office, the sheriff's department, health inspection, fire marshal, you name it. One call, and your life becomes a broken bar complicated." Jessica snapped her briefcase shut with finality. "The violation notice outlines everything. Ignore it at your own peril. We've never lost a case." The convoy began turning back toward the road. Laura paused, glancing over her shoulder one last time, her smile sharp as broken glass. "TikTok, loser. 24 hours. Oh, and that novel you're supposedly writing? Good luck focusing without water or power." She'd done her homework. That realization chilled me. As the roar of engines faded, I looked down at the photograph in my hand. The old box had spilled more paper, so yellowed, fragile, edges curled with age. One caught my eye, deed of transfer and all upper tenant rights. I knelt, carefully gathering the documents. The Wilson estate had the previous owner who died 6 months earlier. His grandchildren had sold me the place for $30,000 cash, desperate to settle affairs. They'd seemed nervous, eager to finish quickly. Now I knew why. The violation notice crumpled in my fist. 24 hours. Laura Sullivan had no idea what she'd started, but neither did I. The sunlight suddenly felt cold against my skin. Behind me, the tape sputtered dry. Water already cut. Laura's threat had come to life. The battle had begun and I was outnumbered 500-1. I picked up another paper from the box and froze. This wasn't just about the boathouse. At dawn, the roar of diesel engines jolted me awake. I nearly tumbled off my narrow cot. Through the window, I saw a line of trucks forming like an invading force. A massive tow rig reversed toward the dock, its driver sipping coffee and checking his watch. Laura Sullivan stood beside a white Mercedes, barking orders through a megaphone. 18 hours remaining. Her voice echoed over the lake. "We've graciously arranged removal services to assist you with compliance." Behind her, at least 20 residents gathered as I'm filming, others clutching mugs of coffee, bathrobes fluttering like banners at a parade. I stepped outside, still in paint-stained clothes, the stench of diesel tangled with the morning mist. Jessica stood by the trucks with a clipboard, ticking boxes. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson," she said, just documenting the preparation phase for the inevitable lawsuit. "Of course, this isn't intimidation," I said, my voice hoarse from the damp air. "This," Laura replied coolly, "is efficiency." She wore a powder blue outfit this time, but the same vindictive smile. "Pete here charges by the hour. Thought we'd save you money by keeping him ready." I noticed an elderly woman. A woman approached from the neighboring house, moving with cautious steps, her eyes flicking nervously toward Laura. When she reached me, she pressed a water bottle into my palm and whispered, "You'll need this. I'm Dorothy Harper. Please be careful." Before I could respond, one of the board members appeared beside us. "Mrs. Harper, Richard Hammond," he said curtly, "you're not part of this. Go home." Dorothy flinched but didn't move at first. "George Wilson was a good man," she murmured. "He once told me something about this lake." Hammond cut her off, stepping closer. "Now, Dorothy, or should we talk about your fence violation from last month?" Her resolve faltered, and she backed away, but not before meeting my gaze with the look that said she knew far more than she could admit. Laura watched with smug satisfaction. "That's the problem with kindness," she declared. "It invites squatters." By mid-morning, the harassment took a new form. A county inspector in an orange vest hammered an unsafe mooring notice onto my dock and photographed every inch as if preparing evidence. Offshore, a barge idled with straps and winches ready, while a subcontractor measured my pilings and 2 guards catalogued my tools. When I objected, they recited statutes in a monotone and advised I could appeal in writing. Their smirking supervisors watched from the shore. I retreated to the dim boathouse, using my phone's flashlight to review the Wilson papers. Most were routine estate documents, but a few fragments caught my attention. A water-stained letter, barely legible, "Remember to keep a broken bar." The rest was gone. A business card slipped out. "Thomas Crawford, land surveyor, established 1946. On the back, someone had written, "The only one who knows the truth." By afternoon, a commercial drone hovered outside my window, its mechanical voice repeating, "Move out, move out. This is your notice." I called the police, but the dispatcher brushed it off. "Civil matter. Take it up with your home." By late day, uniformed guards were patrolling the property with whole badges and flashlights, filming me each time I stepped outside. "Just documenting for our records," one said. As the sun fell, Jessica Sullivan returned, flanked by 2 young associates who looked fresh from law school. "Eager and ruthless. Final offer," she said, sliding a contract across the table. "15,000. You'll lose half of what you paid but avoid years of legal trouble." "This place is worth more than that," I said. "Not after we're finished with it," Jessica replied. 37 violations, 1,000 apiece, daily fines, removal costs, legal fuss. You owe more than your home's value. Sign now. Walk away clean." The buyer's name caught my eye: Serenity Holdings LLC. The address matched Laura's home. "Your mother's buying it," I said. "The HO designates buyers for distressed properties," she answered coolly. "Helps maintain standards." Her smile was as cold as her tone. "You have 1 hour to decide." After they left, I sat in darkness and no power, no water, just the hum of boat engines and hostile voices outside. The Wilson papers were spread across the table. I picked up a photograph, the lake in 1950, untouched except for this boathouse. Why had Wilson kept it? What had he been trying to protect? My phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Mr. Thompson," a quick, uneasy male voice said. "I'm William Brooks. I know what Laura's doing to you. She did it to me too. But I know something she doesn't want anyone to find." "What are you talking about?" "Not on the phone yet. It's not safe." "Meet me at the coffee shop on 3rd Street in an hour. Bring the Wilson papers." "Watch your back. Laura's eyes are everywhere." "How do I know I can trust you?" "You don't. But in 12 hours, you'll have nothing left." "What do you have to lose?" He hung up. Outside, Engines roared and someone shouted through a megaphone, 12 hours, loser. I gathered the Wilson papers into a wooden box, whatever they contained. Someone wanted them buried, but secrets never stay hidden long, especially in a lake this old. As I prepared to leave, the sound hit me like a warning, a chainsaw starting up. They weren't waiting for morning. The coffee shop on 3rd Street felt like neutral ground, just far enough from Serenity Hills to escape Laura's reach. I clutched the box to my chest, checking behind me every few steps. The chainsaws had gone silent only after I'd shown my purchase. Another message followed moments later. She's mobilizing the full board. Whatever you're going to do it fast. The address led me to a weather-worn Victorian on the poor side of town, where Serenity Hills' perfect lawns gave way to cracked sidewalks and sagging chain-link fences. After William left, I'd spent hours in a coffee shop, poring over the photocopied records at terms like private lake ownership and riparian rights dancing across the pages. Words that might save me or mean nothing at all. Thomas Crawford opened the door before I could knock, as if he'd been waiting. At 90, he moved with surprising precision, his gaze sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "You're the Thompson boy who bought George's boathouse." He stood. "Wasn't a question. Come in quickly. Laura's people have been driving by every 20 minutes. His living room is a museum of maps and surveys, the walls layered with topographical charts spanning decades. He guided me to a desk where a pot of coffee waited, still steaming. "Dorothy called," he said. "Told me you found George's papers but need the rest of the story." "Mr. Crawford," I said, "I need to know about the lake. These records suggest George Wilson owned the entire thing." Thomas smiled faintly, his dentures flashing. "He did. I surveyed it myself in 1952. 47 acres of water, plus all rights extending to the original high-water mark. George bought it from the Hartman family when their farm collapsed. Paid cash, believe it or not." "But how could someone own a lake back then?" he said. "You could buy anything if you had the money." George was clever. He saw development coming and wanted to protect his little paradise. Built that boathouse as his primary residence to secure ownership. The deed was airtight. I made sure of it. Thomas stood and crossed to an old safe in the corner, spinning the combination with steady hands. "The question is," he said, looking at me over his glasses, "do you really want the whole truth? Because once you know, there's no going back." "I'm going to lose my home in 8 hours," I said. "I need to know everything." Thomas opened the safe and pulled out a weathered leather portfolio. "George Wilson was my closest friend. We grew up together, served in Korea side by side. When he got sick last year, he made me promise something. Said one day, someone would come asking about the lake, and when they did, I should give them this." He placed the portfolio on the desk. Inside were documents that made my hands tremble. The original deed, survey maps, tax records showing 70 years of payments on the lake itself, and one more thing, a sealed envelope marked for Laura Sullivan's victim. I opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a handwritten letter from George Wilson, dated just 6 months earlier. "To whoever reads this," it began, "Laura Sullivan has been stealing from this community for 20 years. In 2003, when the Hoe formed, I was already battling cancer, too weak to fight, too tired to care. But I kept every document, every scrap of evidence, because I knew one day someone would need it. The lake is private property. Every dock, every boat launch, every fee collected, all illegal. She knew this from the start. I have the emails to prove it." The community's Facebook page was in chaos. A post titled "Emergency Meeting Discussion" had already gathered over 300 comments in less than an hour. The screenshots from Wilson's USB were spreading like wildfire, just enough to spark doubt. Laura's loyalists tried to contain the flames. Fake news, lies from a bitter troublemaker. But the damage was done. Seeds of suspicion had taken root. From my car, I watched Richard Hammond and Daniel Peterson arrive, both looking grim. They knew something was unraveling. Then Jessica Sullivan stepped out of a Tesla, phone pressed to her ear, her free hand slicing the air as she barked into the receiver. Even from a distance, I could sense panic. At exactly 12:05, I walked through the glass doors of the Serenity Hills Community Center carrying the Wilson box. The main hall was overflowing, chairs filled, walls lined with standing homeowners. On stage, Laura presided over the meeting like a queen holding court, her whole board arranged behind her in obedient symmetry. A massive projection screen glowed behind them, reading, "Protecting our community values." She was mid-speech when she saw me enter. "A broken bar, and that's why we must stand united against those who would." Her words froze. Her smile twisted into something feral. "Security, remove this man. He's trespassing." "Actually," I said, my voice echoing through the sudden hush, "I'm a property owner, and I have something everyone here needs to see." Two security guards began to move toward me until Dorothy Harper rose from the front row. "Let him speak," she called. "We all have the right to hear both sides." A wave of murmurs spread through the hall. The guards faltered. Laura's voice cracked like glass. "This man is under investigation for breaking and entering. He terrorized poor Mr. Crawford last night." "Thomas Crawford is right here," a voice shouted from the back. The crowd parted as Thomas stepped forward, alive, uninjured, and furious. "The only crime committed," he said, "was Laura Sullivan filing a false police report." Gasps rippled across the room. Laura's face drained of color, then flushed crimson. I stepped to the front and raised the deed high. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the original deed to Serenity Lake, dated 1952. George Wilson didn't just own a boathouse, he owned the entire lake. Every drop of water you've been paying to access belongs to his estate, which now belongs to me." The room erupted. Shouts, phones raised, cameras recording. "Lies," Laura screamed into her microphone. "This is a pathetic forgery, a desperate stunt." "Then let's verify it," I said evenly. "I have the county record numbers right here. Anyone with a phone can check the public database right now. Parcel number 789-452. Hundreds of screens lit up, casting a blue glow across the hall. Fingers flew. Eyes widened. "It's real," someone whispered. Then louder, "The deed is real." Laura tried to recover. "Even if, and I emphasize if, this deed exists, adverse possession laws clearly state that the property must be openly possessed for 20 years. I cut in, "Except you can't claim adverse possession when you know who the true owner is. And I have proof you knew." Before anyone could stop me, I connected my laptop to the projector. "Mr. Wilson spent his final years documenting everything. Would you like to see?" The first video filled the screen of Laura, younger but unmistakable, seated in what looked like her home office. "The old fool Wilson thinks he owns the lake," she sneered to someone off camera. "We'll work around him. He'll be dead soon anyway." The room fell silent except for her voice echoing through the speakers. "Once he's gone, who's going to challenge us? His kids don't care about some old boathouse." Jessica lunged for my laptop, but Thomas stepped between us. "I think everyone should see this," he said calmly. The next clip rolled the email chains plotting how to conceal ownership. Spreadsheets showing whole funds siphoned into Serenity Holdings LLC. Property records revealing homes Laura acquired after forcing their owners out. "Turn it off," Laura shrieked, spinning toward her board, but Richard Hammond had already stepped back, and Daniel Peterson was filming the screen with his phone. Her allies were abandoning ship. I opened another file. Here's my favorite part. The spreadsheet filled the projectile at 2 decades of maintenance fees totaling $6 million. $6 million, I said, collected from this community for access to a lake you never owned. That's fraud. That's theft. That's racketeering. The crowd turned on her. "Where's our money?" someone shouted. "She stole from us," another yelled. Laura tried to retreat from the stage, but the audience closed in, not violent, just resolute, every phone camera recording her collapse. "This proves nothing," Jessica snapped. "Adverse possession applies. The home maintained and improved the lake, on my property," I countered. "Every dock you built, every so-called improvement, illegal trespass. And you knew it." I held up the USB drive. "Everything's here. 20 years of evidence compiled by George Wilson, and it's all going public today." Laura's voice broke into a shrill cry. "I'll sue you for defamation." "Truth," I said, meeting her glare, "is an absolute defense." Thomas Crawford adjusted his glasses, his calm voice cutting through the tension. "That argument won't stand," he said evenly. "I've taught property law for 30 years. You have no legal foundation." Then, turning to the restless crowd, he declared, "You've all been deceived. Every dollar you paid, every penalty you endured, it was built on a fraud." The hall exploded into chaos. Voices rose in anger and disbelief. demands echoing off the walls. Some shouted for Laura's immediate resignation, others called for her arrest. I stood in the middle of it all, the original deed clutched tightly in my hands, of the same document that had ignited this revolution. Then came Dorothy Harper, small but fierce, climbing the stage with the confidence of a woman who'd had enough. She seized a microphone and spoke with steel in her voice. I move for a vote of no confidence in the entire whole board. A chorus of seconds erupted from the crowd. The motion carried like wildfire. Within minutes, the vote was counted at 498 in favor, 2 against. Only Jessica and Laura stood in their own defense. In less than 5 minutes, the Serenity Hills Homeowners Association, the institution that had ruled, extorted, and terrorized the neighborhood for 20 years, has ceased to exist. But the reckoning wasn't over. As Laura attempted to slip through the side exit, uniformed agents entered through the main doors, and not local rent-a-cops, but real FBI agents. Laura Sullivan, the lead agent, called. We need to discuss financial irregularities, falsified reports, and interstate wire fraud. The charges kept coming. Laura's defiant glare shifted to panic, her complexion draining from red to ghostly white. Jessica tried to dart toward the exit, but the residents formed a silent wall, blocking her path, and not with violence, but with the quiet power of witnesses refusing to look away. This is entrapment, Laura shrieked as the cuffs clicked shut. A voice from the back of the hall shouted, with what money will you sue USA? The money you stole? As the agents escorted her out, Laura turned to me, her fury barely contained. 24 hours, she hissed. I met her glare evenly. You just gave yourself 20 years. The crowd erupted in applause, the sound of long-suppressed relief. Yet beneath the noise, I felt no triumph, only exhaustion. The battle was over, but the war against what Laura had built was far from done. 47 acres of unlawful construction still scarred the lake, and justice wasn't finished cleaning up. That evening, I returned to my boathouse, paintbrush in hand, ready to reclaim a quiet moment of peace. I believed the storm had finally passed. I was wrong. 3 mornings later, the knock came, not Dorothy with congratulations, but a process server flashing a professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. Robert Thompson? He asked, handing me a thick stack of documents. You've been served. The papers bore the seal of Payton and Associates, one of the state's most ruthless law firms, now representing Laura Sullivan and the newly formed Serenity Hills Community Trust. My heart sank as I skimmed the pages. They weren't just appealing, they were retaliating. Their claim alleged that the deed was invalid. Void, they said, because of a missing notarization from George Wilson's wife. Under 1952 property law, spousal consent was. As the crowd began to disperse, neighbors approached, some with tears, some with smiles, all offering apologies, thanks, and help to repair my battered boathouse. The war was over. The tyrant had fallen. But George's words lingered. Winning meant nothing if I became what I'd fought against. Dorothy Harper touched my arm. So, what now? Now, I looked out at the shimmering lake, our lake. Now we learn how to share 47 acres of water without turning into monsters. And maybe I finally finish painting. Someone near the back laughed. She gave you 24 hours. I smiled. We gave her 20 years. Seems fair. 6 months later, the morning sun spread gold across Serenity Lake. I sat on the deck of my fully restored boathouse, coffee steaming beside me, listening to the rhythmic beeping of trucks dismantling the last of the illegal hot docks. Each splash of a falling piling felt like another chain breaking. On shore, Laura Sullivan wore an orange community service vest, a trash grabber in hand, her ankle monitor gleaming above worn work boots. Beautiful morning, isn't it? I called out. She looked up, a face paled, eyes hollow, her pride rotted down to anger. The once reigning queen of Serenity Hills was now cleaning her own kingdom's debris. You destroyed everything, she spat. No, I said simply, taking another sip. You built everything on a lie. I just told the truth. The court had been thorough. Laura received 8 years for fraud, racketeering, and embezzlement. Jessica got 3, plus permanent disbarment. The remaining board members were handed probation and community service. But the most poetic justice came through restitution. Every cent of the $6 million stolen dollars were paid. 3 mansions sold, 5 luxury cars auctioned, offshore accounts frozen and seized. A small boat approached my dock. Dorothy waved from the helm, Thomas Crawford at her side. "Lake Trust meeting in an hour," she called. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. 3 months earlier, we'd founded the Serenity Lake Trust, not another home, but a true community council. Every household had an equal vote. The symbolic lake fee was $1 per year, just enough to keep the structure legal. Maintenance came from donations and fundraisers. Unsurprisingly, when no one was being extorted, generosity flourished. William Brooks jogged by on the new public walking trail, once Laura's private club path, looking healthier than I'd ever seen him. Freed from Laura's threats, he'd rebuilt his law career, this time fighting corruption. His daughter had graduated debt-free, thanks to the whistleblower reward from the FBI case. "Mr. Thompson," I turned to see Richard Hammond approaching with a camera crew. After testifying, he launched a YouTube channel exposing corruption nationwide. "Mind a quick interview? We're doing a 1-year retrospective." "6 months," I corrected with a grin. "But sure." As they set up, my eyes drifted across the peaceful water. I thought about George Wilson's letter again. Don't become another Laura. Every choice since then had honored that promise. The docks were open, the fishing was free, and laughter now echoed where fear once lived. The lake had returned to what it was meant to be, a shared treasure, not a weapon of control. "Rolling," Richard said. "So, Robert, from fighting eviction to owning an entire lake, a broken bar, how does it feel?" I smiled, watching sunlight dance across the water. "Sometimes," I said, glancing toward the shoreline where Laura was emptying trash bins under supervision, "you have to stand up." "Any regrets?" Richard asked. I watched Laura struggle with a toppled bin, the sun glaring off her orange vest. "None," I said. "Justice delayed isn't justice denied. It's justice with interest." After the interview, I walked toward the community center, the same hall where Laura once ruled with arrogance and fear. Now, it buzzed with laughter and purpose. Potlucks replaced power plays. Kids splashed in the adjacent pool during swim lessons. Inside, folding chairs filled with smiling faces awaited the start of the Serenity Lake Trust meeting. Today's agenda: final approval of the shoreline restoration plan. We'd voted to return the lake to its natural beauty, stripping away 20 years of Laura's artificial improvements. Elizabeth Wilson sat in the front row, knitting with calm precision. At 85, she'd become our unofficial historian, weaving stories of the lake's true origins into every conversation. When I sat beside her, she looked up with a proud smile. "George would be so proud," she said softly. "You didn't just save his boathouse, you saved his dream." The meeting moved smoothly, transparent, respectful, productive. Every voice mattered, every vote counted. We unanimously approved the restoration plan, scheduled a summer festival, and commissioned a memorial plaque for George Wilson to be placed at the boathouse he'd once called home. When someone suggested naming the dock after me, I shook my head. "This lake's had enough egos," I said. "Let it just be Serenity Lake." As the meeting adjourned, my phone buzzed with new messages, 15 emails from people across the country, all fighting their own battles. Somehow, the Serenity Lake precedent had become a national symbol for homeowner rights. I'd never meant to start the movement, but I'd become the accidental face of standing up to suburban tyranny. Walking back to my boathouse, I passed the spot where Laura's private dock once stood. Now, a family fished there, laughter echoing across the water. The father nodded to me. "Thanks," he said simply. "My kids can finally enjoy the lake."